Welcome back to the Your Invisible Advantage podcast. It's me, T, and we have a solo episode today, and I'm going to be answering some Q&As. So you guys have sent in your anonymous questions, and I've got it here in front of me on my laptop, and we're going to be going through. I'm going to try to rapid fire. We do know I love a bit of a yap, so not sure how quick we're going to be, but we're going to try keep this around a half an hour episode. So let's get into it. The very first question that someone has asked is, what is the biggest attribute you need to be successful? What makes people not successful from your time working with people? I've been working with people for many years, and I feel like the number one thing that I see not beneficial for people is they don't know how to manage their own emotions. So I feel like self-leadership is a huge one, communicating with yourself and others, because if you can't communicate with yourself and understand what's happening with your own emotions, it's going to bleed out into everything, whether that's your content, whether that's your relationship at home, whether that's your relationship with money, all of that's going to come out into it. So I feel like that's a really big one. And another one, you hear all professional athletes talk about this, but it's like when most people want to quit, like you need to double down. So whenever you feel like would be your quit point, I really feel like the most successful people, they just double down and they keep going. So those would be some things that I really see in a lot of the successful people, and myself included, why I haven't quit, even though I've had some shit times over the years. It's like you just keep getting back up. Whenever you get knocked down, you get back up. So I think a huge piece in that for me is I really focus on attaching my why and releasing the how. So I feel like that's something that I'm really good at, is not getting too attached to it, which comes in with self-leadership and managing emotions. So I think that's a really big thing. And in the pursuit of wanting to be seen and wanting to be successful, I think it's also about humbling yourself and knowing that if you want to master anything, there's going to be times where there's so much pressure on you, you want to quit. There's so much internal head noise. There's so much where you want significance, you want to be seen, you want to be making an impact, and it's just not going to be there. Like you are going to have to go through the shit. And I think it's the people who can just push through that and persevere through that. So that's a huge thing. And another thing, which I have done a whole other episode on, so I won't go into it, but if you go back and listen to my episode on perseverance, I spoke about you have to be able to see something and not see it as step 100. So like everyone looks at something and they're like, all right, I want the $1 million business. I want to be speaking on stages. I want to be having my own podcast. And everyone looks at that, which is step 100, but you have to be willing to take it where you actually are. So plant your feet where you are, humble yourself, be willing to put in the work. And if you have a strong enough why, the how kind of figures itself out. Because if you're focusing on step 100, you're not even at step 2 yet, like that's where you need to focus. So that would be my answer to that. The next question is most impactful mentors you've had or worked with and why? I have worked with so many people over the years, and I would say my most impactful are actually nothing to do with business, and they're nothing to do with money and making money or skills in that side of things. I would say my most impactful have been people who have helped me with myself and my internal. So I would say there's 3 that come to mind. And while everyone has been amazing, so like that's not to discredit any of my business mentors or anything like that, they've actually all been incredible. But I would say biggest impact on my life, Gabor Mate, Peter Crone, and Jaguar Heart. I would say those are the 3 people that I've really learned off who, if you can find any way to be in their world, and if you've worked with me, now that you know those people have been a huge influence on me, you'll be like, oh, that's why she coaches like that. That's why she mentors like that. And also Joe Hudson. Sorry. So there's 4. I would say those 4 are my most impactful. Next question. And a really common theme that I notice as well is they're all men, which I haven't really looked into that too much yet, but I do think that I just like the delivery of how men communicate things. So yeah, there could be something there. Next question. I have this, okay, this is a personal one. I have the strategy down and my content is still not landing. What am I doing wrong? I've hired one of, if not the biggest social media guru from the coast, and it didn't help at all. They just told me to document my life and be consistent and stop doom scrolling. Feel like I'm missing something. Okay, so firstly, I feel like just posting consistently and not doom scrolling and documenting, I feel like that's not a real strategy. So Firstly, I would say have a look at the actual strategy there. Like, what is your clear positioning? What is your you pillar as a founder? What is your identity that people are buying into in the brand world? And then like, what is your actual offer and what's your position on that? But other than that, I would say sometimes people can have the best content and, they've used ChatGPT or they've used Claude and it's the best. Like the piece of content is actually so freaking good. Not that I would say those things create good content. I actually think like your embodiment will create way better content. But sometimes people can have like the script perfect and the content will absolutely flop. And it's because there's no leadership in it. There's no magnetism. There's no embodiment. And I think when you work on what makes you valuable is not what you can teach someone. It's actually how do you become more valuable than someone's money? Why are you more valuable than someone's time that they're doom scrolling? Because that's what everyone's doing on social media. So I think a lot of it comes down to everyone thinks content is a strategy problem. And, I notice myself even when things aren't working, I look to that strategy and I'm like, oh, it's the strategy. But it actually never is. It is more so the leadership, the embodiment, the internal noise that is happening. So without context, I can't really tell you what's not working. But also I would say like you did mention in there, what am I doing wrong? So I would also look at your languaging there and be like, it's not a personal attack. So you're very much focused on like, what are you doing? I would actually look at that and be like, no, what skills do you not have? And where are you actually not being honest in your content? So I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I think you just need to kind of flip the script of how you're looking at it and potentially not see it as a strategy problem and see what could come up there if you explore that. Okay, next question. I am thirsty because I don't think I've taken a breath in like 10 minutes. I told Justin, he's sitting behind the camera, and I was like, guys, Justin, I'm so nervous to do this because I've never done one where I talk to myself in a podcast studio. So I'm feeling nervous. Okay, next question. I get really confused. Okay, another personal one. I get really confused if I should share things that aren't related to my business online. Will I stop making money? Some people say yes, some people say no. I'm making roughly 20 to 40K months. Okay, that's amazing. Pending, but I'm really scared to do anything outside of educational content because it's working. Would love to talk about it. Yes, so I think that the worst content strategy that you can have is to only ever share about your business. I mean, people don't buy offers. They buy the people who have created the offers, and they buy what identity they're stepping into when they buy the offer. So I would say that the fact that you're making 20 to 40K months solely on education alone means you're so good at what you do. But I would also argue that if you actually bought in more of the human element and really put a repulsion strategy with your content, I know that sounds weird, but you kind of want to double down on your personal brand. And I'm telling you, the more you can kind of make people hate you, not intentionally, but it's like just actually standing more for personal philosophies and personal opinions. And instead of focusing on the education, focus more on storytelling, on your beliefs as a human, you will actually attract much more loyal people. But yeah, I reckon you could easily get that. I mean, I don't even know what you sell. You didn't say what you sell, but you could easily get that higher than 20 to 40K months for sure. Again, I don't even know what you do. You just said online business, but 100%, you will never go wrong with adding more of you in it. But I want to be clear as well, personal brand doesn't mean like sharing your personal diary online. When we say personal brand, like your personal brand is not you. It is what message are you wanting to share with the world? What philosophies are you wanting to indoctrinate people into? And then what collective change are you creating with the world? And your offers so happen to be a vehicle that you can help people do that. So yeah, no matter who you are, personal brand over offer any day. Because if you see it like personal brand is the top tier of the umbrella, and then under that, your offer is one pillar of that. So your business is just one pillar, but you've still got the identity people are buying into, which is like brand culture. That's where brands actually blow up and create that community. And then you've got the you pillar, which is making people fall in love with you. So if you don't have those other two, like right now you have 1/3 of the pie, imagine what you could do if you had the other two in there. That's all I'll say. And if you have questions, like obviously come and DM me. Okay, next question. I'm struggling to ask for help in my business. I own 2 times businesses, but I feel the pressure so much it's affecting my home life. I get fearful to let people in because I don't want people to know I'm struggling even though I look successful. Can you help? Okay, strap in. So essentially with things like this, it's really hard. I don't want to blanket statement anyone without actually talking to them. However, listening to your language, what I'm hearing is an identity fracture of like, I'm the capable one. So I would assume and guess that you have some type of narrative running of like asking for help means insert blank. So whatever you're thinking that means about you. So the surface level for most entrepreneurs and business owners, I've had this, my clients have this, is we go into the avoidance of asking for help. We let our health go. I know I did that. And I've only recently, just over the last year and a half, I reckon, got back into being like, okay, my business can't be my whole life. And it literally took that away from me. So I feel like when we go into business, we get so obsessed and so focused on it. And then when we just keep go, all we're doing is proving to ourselves like the only way I'm worthy is if I'm capable of building this business and having it be successful. And then my guess is from this is you said you look successful. So I guess you are successful. And then we have this belief of, well, if I stop, if I pause, if I, shift directions or maybe put more attention onto my relationship or my health, I feel like a lot of people feel like they're going backwards. And it can look like not asking for help, just keep doubling down on work, over responsibility. We can't delegate, we can't hire. We don't want to have anything used against us, essentially. So the way that I see that is a wound of, and the way I know is because I had it, is a wound of inadequacy. Underneath that is what I would most likely lead to. I would have to obviously ask more questions, but yeah, a secondary gain there is I feel like if you never risk being seen as less than, aka asking for help or, taking a pause, taking a step back, taking a second to be like, actually, hold on, I've built something, but these other areas of my life are not where I want them to be. And it's almost like admitting that to yourself can be really hard because, again, you're the creator of that, right? So it feels personal. But I think if you can understand that the wound there is inadequacy and you can actually learn to leverage that instead and let the right people see you, let the right people hold you and guide you, there is actually very easy and simple ways out of that. A lot of that is perspective work. And also having someone help you stay accountable to the things you say you want without you just doubling down and working more and, going into that burnout phase. So that's where burnout happens is people don't ask for help and they don't know how to stop because once you build success, it's almost worse because then you've got to keep up appearances, you've got to keep that up and you don't want to let yourself down or other people down. Next question. How do I get invited to speak at events and podcasts? Great question. I would not say I'm the guru on this. I would say that I am learning this at the moment. But what I would say and what I'm really focusing on for myself, whether this be me going on someone's podcast, whether this be me getting asked to speak at events, or whether this be having someone come on my podcast, we really have to look at, you have to be the type of person that someone feels like they're going to get value from. So a lot of people don't like to see this because they like to be like, no, but I'm valuable and worthy as I am. And it's like no one's questioning your self-worth as a human. But what we are saying is if you want to be invited on podcasts, if you want to be invited to speak at events, if you want to have your own podcast and have people on, there has to be an element of what value are you actually bringing to that other person. So I'll give you an example. With my podcast, I'm not naive to know that this is a newer podcast. I'm not naive to know that this is a small podcast, right? So when I'm inviting guests on, something that I said to myself at the start of this year was I wanted to take it seriously and I wanted to have really insane, amazing guests on who are arguably more successful than me. And one of my things I said to myself was, but am I worthy of them seeing me as someone who's valuable for them to trade their time with, for them to take time out of their day to do it? So I was like, how can I make this a fair value exchange for them? And so I hire a professional podcast studio. I make sure I get the social media package on there for them. Like those things are not for me. I mean, although I love the professional footage, it looks beautiful, but I was doing my podcast at my home and super happy with that. But I didn't want to invite these really big podcast guests on and then say, hey, we're going to be doing it over Zoom and I'm going to be sitting in my bedroom. And while that's fine and like people have to start where they start, I've got the means and ability to invest into this podcast and put the money in. I'm not getting anything back from that yet. It's going to be a long-term investment, but I get to have amazing conversations. I get to feel inspired. It's helping me so much with just falling back in love with things. And then they also get an exchange. They get visibility. They get professional footage they can use on their page, etc. So that was a long way to say. I would say you have to become, like everyone wants to sit at the table, and we've heard it before. You can't sit at the table if you don't have anything to offer the table. So it's asking yourself, like, how can you actually be someone of value to sit at that table with people? And then just the very obvious thing, which, I mean, I shouldn't really have to say this, but I do, put yourself out there. Ask the question. If you don't ask, you don't get. So there's also that very simple one. Pitch yourself to people as well. And you have to, when you pitch yourself to people, like again, when I pitch myself to people for them to come on my podcast, I'm not saying, hey, you're going to help me. I'm like, here's how this will help you. Here's how this will benefit you. Here's how this will benefit your audience. And I'm focusing on what value they get. So yeah, if you are pitching to people, just keep that in mind. It has to be a value exchange for them. Next question. I have 40K followers roughly, and I'm making between 6 to 8K a month. I feel like I can make more, but I don't want to cap my time. What would you do? So hard without knowing any context. I feel like a lot of these, I'm like, can I ask one more question, please? Can I buy a vowel? So I would say just without knowing anything. I don't know what business you do. Are you a coach? Are you a service provider? Are you e-commerce? Like I literally don't know. I'm assuming you're some type of coach service provider because that's who I work with. But I would say look at one-to-many as a business model. Also look at your money pathways on the scenes and then behind the scenes, because you're potentially leaving so much income where you don't actually have to be hands-on. Look at what you're doing that's hands-on that you could potentially make into something that's not hands-on. Those are the things that I would be looking at. But again, it is really hard to know without knowing more about you. But you do have a decent sized audience, so one-to-many could be a really good thing for you. Obviously, pending how like in demand they are. But yeah, you have to understand, I guess, as well, what type of business you want, what type of life you want. So if you really value your free time, then you have to build a business around that. So whenever I look at someone, I'm always like, cool, just because someone else does one-to-many and that works for them, is that what you value? Is that where your genius is? And does it also make sense for your audience? So many questions. If you want further clarification, just ask me. Next question. How did your client grow so fast with her followers? You posted the other day. We need the intel. Okay. So I chose this question because this one was super simple and super easy. One of my clients grew from 1,500 followers to 15.6 or something like that in just a few weeks based on us making a small shift and change. It was simply her brand DNA. So when she started working with me, she was like, my account feels a bit dead. I feel like, I'm not really getting the engagement that I want, all this jazz. So we revisited, what is her actual business? What is she helping people with? What's the vision for her page? And then it was so obvious to me, we're not speaking to her buyer. So this is something that people get wrong all the time, is they think that their audience understands what they understand. Your audience doesn't. Your audience they don't have your brain. They don't have your mind. They don't relate to the same things you do. So the simple thing we changed was how she was showing up. And I know it sounds so fluffy and surface level, but we had to align with her audience's values and what they wanted to belong to. I'll literally tell you the example with her. I can't tell you what her exact niche and who she is, but let's just say mums in health and fitness. That was her niche, right? So she was posting content. As soon as I looked, I could tell. She was posting content that was super polished. She was posting content that, she looked beautiful. She looked good, but it was very much, she was very polished, and she was posting like a business coach essentially. Is like, when I looked at her page, I was like, oh, I can see you've been following a lot of business coaches, because the way she was posting was in line with that. And she was like, how the fuck did you know? And I was like, oh, well, I can just kind of tell by the way that you're showing up. And I inquired, like, was that how she enjoyed showing up? Did she feel resistance to content, etc.? And she said that she felt a little bit of resistance in the fact of she always had to make herself look good. She wanted to be the authority, so she wanted to put makeup on and dress up and this, that, the other, and get professional. She had professional photo shoots all over her page. And I asked her one simple question. I was like, yeah, but do you think that's what your audience actually cares about? She was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, think about who you're selling to. I'm like, if you are selling health and fitness to mums, do you think a professional photo shoot is really going? And I mean, like, yes, there's circumstances where if we're doing a big launch and an offer, whatever, we need that. But yeah, I was just like, do you think that's really what's going to captivate them? Or like what actually influences and drives your audience? And so we looked at it. I have like 6 layers of influence where like things that people in buying behavior are attracted to and their status, right? So they're the 6 influences with status, and that is why people buy. So I said to her, you have to start to understand why your people are buying. How is very different. How is more so the strategy, the thing like that. But with the why, it's the psychological reason people buy, and it's because they have a perceived status that they want to upkeep. So the ones that there's like power, significance, belonging, empathy, strength. So we have all these different things that people are influenced by, and her people, I was like, they don't care about power, which is how she was presenting, right? She was trying to be the boss babe, that type of vibe. And I was like, they actually more so want probably approval and belonging. So we shifted her content, literally just made her content messier. I know some people are going to be like, what? I couldn't. We posted her messy kitchen. We posted her laundry that had clothes everywhere. And all of a sudden her content started popping off. And I was like, that just goes to show the power in really understanding your buyer. It's so important, and like the community that you're building. So simple way to say that is like understand who you're speaking to and get the positioning right. Next question is, I've had my own private practice for 10 years, but I want to start building my brand. I feel like I'm too old to start. What's the best thing to focus on? So firstly, story is I'm too old. Like that's just a story that you have, an identity that I guess you hold on to. But I guess the way I see it is that protects from the real issue. And I've seen this time and time again. I've worked with a lot of therapists who want to build their personal brand. I've worked with a lot of healthcare professionals, a lot of high up people who then come into the online world. And what I've seen time and time again is they actually have this fear of almost like starting over. So in their own head, they are masters at what they do. They've been doing it, you said 10 years, 20 years, whatever. They're at the top of their field. Then when you come into the online space, you're a beginner, right? So that kind of threatens that identity that you have as like mastery and the status you would have from having a practice for 10 years. Like that's amazing. I'm sure, you're very in demand, booked out, all those things. And of course you want to bring that online because social media is amazing. And a personal brand would be really cool for you. But that's where I see a lot of people, they think it's like, I'm too old. But really underneath that, I think there would be something there. And what I would say, leverage your authority in your content. So a lot of people think they're starting from zero when they come online. And I've seen this with a few businesses who have been in person for a while and they're learning social media and they might be above the age of 30, 40, 50 and they're trying to get onto social media. And they do have that belief of like, I'm too old, who will listen to me? I've got wrinkles, I don't look as pretty as these people, all this stuff. But I'm telling you right now, if you leverage your 10 years of experience, that actually gives you so much authority. You're not starting from zero. And that's exactly why people are going to buy from you, is because you can leverage your 10 years. Like that's absolutely insane. And I would say like really lean on your personality as well. I think that's a huge thing for personal brands coming in, especially when you are not like a cute little influencer who's like, 20 years old. You are going to like, they can just post an aesthetic lifestyle, but you've got so much culture at that age. Like if you've had a practice for 10 years, you're at least above 30. So I would say really leverage your wisdom and leverage your background, and you're not starting from zero. Next question. No matter how much money I make, I avoid finances, my health and my relationship outside of business. I know it's a me thing, but can't stop to do these things or it will stop working is my fear. Is this normal? Help, because I know it holds me back. Yes. So very common for a, high performing person who it's like go, go, go all the time. The business becomes the main important thing in their life. And I get it. Again, that was me. I can just speak from personal experience with that and then also experience with clients. So I don't know if this will resonate with you, but, I had this belief that if I stopped and started to put the focus back on my health and, maybe stopped all that attention and time on my business, then I would almost like lose my obsession or lose my ambition, or even all that work I had done would, like, if I'm not sitting at my computer desk 24/7, it's going to completely flop. But you really have to trust that even if you did slow down or stop, or, it doesn't sound like you want to stop. It just looks like you want to put focus on different areas of your life. I think you just need to trust the work that you've done to get you there, and that stopping doesn't mean that everything you've built will fall backwards. I think it's knowing that you've built insane foundations over that time. So how amazing that you have put all that work in to build those foundations, and now you get to focus on other things. Like, that's why we do it, right? Health and fitness is a great example with this. When I first started with health and fitness, I had to be obsessed with it. I had to say no to going to events. I had to say no to eating my grandma's birthday cake, like, just because I was trying to lose 38 kilos. Like, I had to learn a whole new way of being, and balance was really out of the question for me. But you get to a point where you no longer need to do that. I can now eat the cake. I can now go out and have some drinks. I can now eat pizza every single weekend, and I maintain my physique because I built the solid foundations. So if I were you, I would start to see it like that, of not, oh my God, what could I lose? Be like, holy shit, I've built such solid foundations that I get to now have trust that they're going to support me on this next phase. Life comes in seasons. Like, just surrender to the season you're in. And know that, like, your ambition isn't going anywhere. Like, all of your hard work isn't going anywhere, your audience, business, whatever. As long as you have the systems in place, just make sure you do it in a smart way and you'll be fine. And just understanding that our values also change. So, you might have been in a season where wealth, like learning, self-growth was a really big value. Now you might be in a season where family is a big value. I see that happen a lot for people, where health is now a big value. So just like also looking at where are you currently sitting with your values, they will change over time. Okay, next question. How do I stop attracting clients who, when they sign up, they're really motivated and say they want change, but then they end up ghosting after a few weeks? Super easy with this one. This has to come down to, one, your expectations and standards you're setting when they sign up. So if your onboarding is not clear, concise for the client, onboarding is like one of my favorite things to help people with, because it makes the biggest difference with how you set the standard for what people can expect in your world. That's going to be really huge. But first and foremost, before you even get to someone signing up, you want to make sure the people coming in are the right people, right? So I would say get over your fear of hurting people in your content and be more honest in your content. If you can set the expectation more in your content of what it actually takes and what your clients have to do, then when people come in, they're not shocked. They're not surprised, right? If I created content and I was like, business gets to be flowy and easy and fun, well, I'm going to attract people who they come into my world, and then when they're having a fucking identity crisis, they're going to be like, I'm quitting, because they don't know what to expect with business. If I'm honest about the journey of business and be like, look, some days you are going to absolutely have mental breakdowns and feel like you want to throw it all in, but that's actually where your capacity is widening, blah, 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 blah. Well, now when someone comes into my world, they know that when those hard emotions come up, I'm not going to baby them. I'm like, I literally told you to expect this. Now we work through it. Now we do this to manage it. Now this is how we lead ourselves through it. So they're prepared for the work before they come in. So they're the two things I would look at there. And a lot of people have a hard time with that because they don't want to be honest in their content, because they're like, what if that repels people if I tell them how much work they have to put in? That's a good thing. You want to repel those people because they're not gonna get good results, and that will affect them, waste their money, waste their time, and also damage your reputation and your confidence. So you don't want that. All right, next question. Would you recommend building demand before I go into selling my next digital product? I have a pretty good audience already at 55K followers. I released my last one. It went okay, but I didn't really build much demand beforehand, wondering if I should approach it differently. Yes. You should see it always. Like, building demand is the most important thing you can do. Just because we have a lot of followers doesn't mean we're going to make a lot of money. So yeah, I always say that to people. It really doesn't matter how many followers you have. It matters how many of those followers are good quality followers who want what you have and are willing to exchange money for the value you provide. So if you can't build demand for that and understand what they need, then they're not going to buy. So short answer, yes, build demand. Next question. I'm not going to give up or anything, but I feel like this business thing is really hard. Do you ever experience days where you're just like, what the fuck, and want to give up? I find this question so funny, which is why I had to put it in here. Yes, business is hard. I have constant moments where I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this would be so much easier to go and get a normal 9-to-5 job. But the way that I see it is like, why complain about something I've chosen to do? Why not just get on with it? And I always bring it back to, as a business owner, I never really wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I'm not your typical entrepreneur. Like, I actually would be fine with going and getting another normal job. I don't really give a fuck about that. But for me, it's my why has to be more important and stronger than how hard it is. So for me, I actually love challenge. I love hard days. I love adversity. I love when things aren't working right. I always think to myself, holy shit, I'm going to gain so fucking much out of this, even if I can't see it right now. And every single time it's proven to be true. You always, like, whenever you come out of the storm, there's always the fucking rainbow. So yeah, short answer to that is I think everyone has days like that in business, but just don't make it personal. Don't make it mean you're doing the wrong thing. You have to have that hunger and like, why are you doing it? Why has to be stronger than how hard it is? Because otherwise you will quit, which you said you didn't want to. All right, last question, and then we're going to wrap it up. So I'm wanting to quit my 9-to-5 and go all in on content and building a personal brand to eventually make money on it. Advice. My advice is keep a stable income while you're building that up. That is very unpopular advice, but I've seen it time and time again. People quit and then they're I've said this quote so much in the last, I don't even know, like 2 or 3 weeks, but desperate people just do stupid shit. You don't want to be building from that place. Have some type of income, whether it's full-time, whether it's part-time, have some stability before you decide that you're going to quit. I would say once your business is making 2 times your 9-to-5, for me, I went literally like 4 to 5 times until I felt safe, because the thing about online business is it's unpredictable. So things change, environments change, you change, algorithms change, like the buying culture changes, the world changes. So you just want to be, well prepared that you're building yourself internally, and you don't want to build from a place of scarcity. So that's what I would say there is like, it doesn't even have to be a stable income of yourself, but at least know that you have the support and you're not building from scarcity, because that can be a really hard place to build from. And I've seen it completely break people when they build from that place. So you don't want to be doing that. And again, everyone's nuanced. Some people may thrive. I actually have one client, I'm going to devil's advocate that. I have one client and she actually worked really well when she quit her job and went all in, but I feel like she's an anomaly. And I feel like most people, 80% of people, will not benefit from doing that. She was one of the 20% who I actually think can thrive when their back's against a wall. But yeah, I would just say also know yourself, know what type of person you are. So that is it for this episode, guys. I hope you have loved this. These questions were really good. I might do more of these if you guys loved it. So please share, tag me, let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.